Hello, Robot Club members. Sorry that we are not able to meet tonight and probably the rest of this year, but I want to do a competition anyways if we can. And so if you're able to take a kit home and do that with your kids, that will be great. I wanted to record something to show you a little bit more of the programming side of things and what you can get into as you get into the challenge. Again, you don't have to do programming. I think the way I want to do the competition is if you could send me a video of your best take of writing the word hello and send that to me, then we can judge this and see if we can still hold this competition even if it's done remotely. So, but if you choose to use code, I think that would be an excellent step, especially for older children to start wrapping your heads around this, or even parents who want to get their head into this. So if you pick up a laptop from us, this is installed already, but if not, you can go to this website and install Vex IQ blocks. This version that we have is the Vex IQ set. The V5 is a more advanced, larger set, but the set we have is IQ, so you download that for Windows. Once installed, this is what the app looks like. It looks a lot like Scratch, so that's a good starter for people who have already got into Scratch. And I want to just walk through a couple things. I have a file up already. We'll get into that in a little bit. But once you get into it, it's kind of slick actually. For a new program, I would recommend starting out with the tutorials. More specifically, you're going to get into drivetrain configuration. So if you do this, you can watch the video of how to do the drivetrain. And it'll show you how to set up your drive train and your inputs. And I highly recommend using the Z sensor. That will give you, it's a gyroscope that'll tell you positioning, and it will make your coding a lot easier, as I'll show you in a little bit. Well, so again, your code looks a lot like Scratch actually. It's a lot of drag and drop. I'm going to jump specifically to some of the examples that I've been working with, and hopefully it's not too overwhelming, but we'll walk through this slowly. All right, so starting from the top, when you connect in your project, there is a way to download it to your brain, and again, it has to be connected via USB to your laptop, and then you're going to run that. When run, this is what gets kicked off when started. So let me walk through the code a little bit. You don't have to do these first steps, but we are going to set our drive velocity to 20%. Just if it drives too fast, I think that might play with our accuracy. Drive heading, you can probably ignore this, but I think the gyroscope, I can say I'm going to start out at 0 degrees, and I will use that later in my code. I'm not actually sure what set print precision is, but I think that was something my son was playing with. He's playing with some plain notes, so that's just for fun. We don't have to do that. And timer. All right, the big important thing of your code though is this broadcast. I haven't fully tested all of this, so I'm not sure if all it works, but I at least want you guys to get an idea of how this works. So I'm going to broadcast the letter H, and the way you set this up is these are color coded. So an event like broadcast would be in the yellow range. You can do broadcast like there. If to make this, you do like a new message. So like, let's say I want to do the letter K, then you can do a broadcast K, for example. So broadcast K, then if you broadcast the word, let's just concentrate on K for a second. If you do K, then you have on the other side, you have of your events, you have when you receive K. So when I receive K, if now you have to think about how am I going to draw K. So for my letters, I'm making them about 8 inch tall. So I'm doing a let me see this if I get this drivetrain. Here we go. We're going to drive forward for 8 inches. And so on a K, if I'm starting here, that means I'm driving forward 8 inches. All right. I skipped over a section. I have a function called pen up and pen down. Functions are created over here. You can easily create your own block known as a function. So you do like my function here. And in this case, and then it shows up as a thing here. And you can drag over my function and you can create what the functions do here. In this case, I have a pen up that says when I say pen up, I stop driving. I set my pen motor to a velocity of 10%. My pen motor is another motor, not the drive motors, but this lifts my pen. And I have a button on my pen, or on my thing, that hits when it's lifted all the way. This is optional. You can just say, hey, lift it 50 turns or 50 degrees or however you want to do that. But this is my code for this. My code says, hey, when it's pressed, reverse the motor and then stop. Alternatively, when I put the pen down, it says spin the motor. Or actually, I run pen up first just to make sure it's all the way up in case it's dragging. It's not supposed to be. I wouldn't have to do this. But then spin the motor down forward 60 degrees. So the pen down is a lot simpler. So when I start my K, this is my first starting point. The first thing I'm going to do is I want to put my pen down. Skip that step. Drive forward 8 inches. And then I want to pick my pen up. So as you see, by making these little sub functions, it makes it a lot easier coding as you walk through. All right, so I've driven forward. Now I need to go back and make the K shape going up and down here. So I'm going to drive backwards for 4 inches. That gets me back to my middle. Now I'm going to turn right. And let's make a 45-degree angle. Before I start drawing, I need to do my pen down. And then I'm going to drive, sorry for the phone call. I'm going to drive forward. And this is a little bit of a judgment call. Unless you want to get into trigonometry, then you can figure out exactly how to get the top. But let's say it's around 4 inches, or 4.5. So I'm going to drive. So if I've gone forward, I've come back. Now I'm going to drive up to here for 4.5 inches, and then I want to put my pin back up. I want to drive backwards for 4.5 inches. Now my robot's facing kind of this way, so now I need to rotate to make the bottom K. So let's just, from this standpoint, let's just rotate, oops, I must turn right for 90 degrees. So if I'm 45 and I do a 90 down this way, then I'm ready there. And now I'm going to repeat this. I'm going to put my pen down. And then I'm going to drive forward 4.5 inches. At this point, my K should be done, but the way I've been doing my letters is I want to always end at the same spot. So I am going to, there's a couple ways to reverse course, but let's pretend like we're on the bottom. Let's make sure our pen is always up when we're done drawing. And I should be at a 45 degrees at the bottom. So I need to rotate. This is a great activity for kids learning math, by the way, and angles. If I'm facing down this way, and I want to, what I want to do is drive this way. So I'm going to angle, I can't do my head right. This is trial and error, but let's say down, I need to go left 45 degrees. Let's do that. So I'm going to turn left. So now I should be facing this way if my calculation is right, and I might be off. That might be 135 degrees. Let's see. No? 40, I think it's 45. Again, trial and error will get you there, but I think 45 will get me driving this way. I'm going to drive forward, say 2 inches. And that's not 2. And then now I'm going to turn left for 90 degrees. All right, this gets me back at the same orientation that I started my letter with. So my thought is always end kind of at the same position 2 inches from where I drew the last letter. We briefly saw heading earlier. One thing to make sure that you're oriented correctly is to turn heading to 0 degrees again. I haven't actually tested this, but I think this is what this means. This is to make sure that you're lined up straight and your letters look straight. It's at least something I'm going to try. So if you do your letter, we have a K, then you can start doing your other letters. We want to broadcast E. Again, we have programs for each letter. The L, you can do twice. You can repeat the same program twice. That should work. The O is fun. A quick peek at the O. Because I'm doing short lines, we actually have a repeat. 12-sided, we need to experiment to see if this works. But the O lines is a rotation of 30-degree turns 12 times, and that will make our circle. Haven't tested this. Might actually want to go for more turns and then change this accordingly. Again, you might have to pull out some old trigonometry. You have 360 degrees. How many line segments do you have? 12. So 360 divided by 12 is your number of degrees. You can figure out your inches if you use pi formula and parameters. If you remember that 2 pi r is your formula for parameter. Anyways, that gets into more advanced stuff, and you don't have to go there, but that's just some hints there. So that's a quick hint of how to get into coding. A hint also is if you design your bot and your pen is way out off-centered, this coding is not going to work really well when you do your rotations. So we designed our bot to have the pen as close to the middle as possible. So whenever you rotate, if you can keep the pen in the same position when you're rotating, then this will be more successful. If you have a design where your pen is way off base, I'm not sure how you're going to compensate for that. So you're going to have a lot harder time if your pen is not centrally located. And again, the Z switch is also, if it's centrally located, that will help distance as well. So that's just a hint there of some problems you might run into if your pen is not centrally located on there. Again, I think it's helpful to have lift problems, pen up. A very important hint that I forgot earlier is when the button was pressed to stop the motor. I forgot this step, and this thing never stopped, even if the button was pushed, and so this doesn't know to stop it until after that's rotated. So you'll run into problems like that, as I expect. Definitely check out the tutorials. You can learn more things, play with new sensors, do the challenge. And actually, we have the kit for several weeks here. If you do the challenge and we wanted to work at some other things, go ahead and do that. Play with some sounds if you want. My son Quentin went kind of crazy and decided to do his whole name. So once the kids kind of figure out the logic of this, and you've tested that, he went ahead and wrote his whole name. We haven't tested this yet, but Quinten. If you get really good, you can do the whole alphabet and write whatever you want. And another variation that I will encourage for those who want to get more advanced is to make these variables. So instead of moving 8 inches to set a variable, let's do this. So variables, make a variable. So I made a variable called height in this example, and I am going to set height. I already did this. Set height to 8. So if that's at the beginning of my code, then anytime that I want to do to draw a height, then I drop this in and I'm drawing 8 inches. All right, if I want to do half the height, by the way, to delete something, you just drag it off this and it disappears. If I'm going to do half the height, then I do a formula of this of height divided by 2. So I would drag this in and then put in height divided by 2. I didn't do this for everything, but the idea here is you can easily change the height of your text, and if you change this to like 16, it will change your whole code to make larger letters. So that's just an idea of a way to take this to the next level once you get good. So good luck with this. When you've done your challenge, hello, go ahead, upload it to YouTube or send me a link somehow, and we will do the judging for this and look forward to what you come up with. If you run into problems, let me know and I can try to help. You can share your code. This does a PDF, or you can save off a file and send it to me and I can try to test it as well. But again, that's intro to programming. The first step, if you're just looking at this, is probably to get your bot working correctly and testing your pen up and pen down functions and how that operates, and then finally figure out how to do movement if you're doing programming. Thanks.